one bad experience, one hair found in the sink, one bad review, one bad interaction, you potentially lose a customer. They don't necessarily have, from at least from our vantage point, high LTV or high margins. What made you get into this business? I'm just curious. You're obviously smart. You're thoughtful.
Yeah.
What drew you to this space? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Niconomics, a podcast about the economics of small businesses. And today's episode was pretty awesome. It was the first time I've ever spoken to someone who had summited Everest. Pretty rad. We had Neel Parekh on, who is the founder and CEO of Maid. It's a cleaning franchise company that is based out of Los Angeles, California, 100% remote, and has locations all over the country. We had a very wide-ranging conversation from everything from what it took to prepare for Everest all the way to the fact that he lives in Southern California, and we talked about traffic. So if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. I think you're really, really, really going to like his insights into what it takes to grow a business from scratch. And so with that, let's just hop into the show. All right. I have Neel Parekh here with me today. And Neel, I'm actually pretty excited because for a long time you've believed that me and Chris were the same person. And I just wanted you to know that we're actually
I
separate
still
people.
believe that. No,
Well,
I don't see Chris here. No evidence.
all right. We're going to get to the business stuff in a minute here, but you just got done hiking Everest. I have to know, what was the highlight of that trip?
Man, taking a shower at the end of the trip was the highlight of the trip.
Okay. How long is the trip?
It-
If I go to hike Everest, I go to base camp, like from base camp to peak to back to base camp. How long is
yeah.
that?
So to clarify, I hiked to base camp. I did not get to summit. So I
Okay.
just did that to base camp, which is 9 days hiking to get there. If you actually want to go to summit, it's insane. You have to stay at base camp for probably 2 months of training, costs 50 to 100 grand. So the people who actually do that are like all in on
Oh my
hiking.
gosh.
So all the log jams you see on TV, that's all people trying to summit at the same time, because usually the weather window, there's maybe 2 windows where you could summit in 3 months of waiting. So everyone just tries to do it at once. So anyways, I got to base camp and I got to see everyone prepping because the weather window was about to happen. So that was very neat. But I quickly realized I'm cool stopping at base camp. Like I have no intention of going to summit. And that was a big enough adventure for me. It was hard getting there.
2 months? So people are at base camp for 2 months training?
Minimum of a month and a half, but yeah, you have to do a crazy amount of acclimatization training there. So it's only 2 miles from base camp to the top, but it's insanity.
So how long did it take you to get to base camp? Where did you start from and how long did it take you to get to base camp?
Yeah, so I was in Kathmandu, went over to the starting point, which is called Lukla. Small little town. It's technically the most dangerous airstrip in the world because it's so tiny and everyone flies into it.
I've seen that airstrip before on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've seen that.
yeah. Tiny, and like you're on this tiny plane with 10 people and you land and stuff. So that's where we started and pretty much started immediately. So every day is like 7, 8 hours of hiking. You're at altitude. It's pretty tough. Like it's not too easy, but you're not like grappling on different things. It's just really tough hiking.
How did you train for that? You live in Southern California, which is like the best place in the world to live, right? So it's not like you were training in inclement weather and you had to like summit Everest. What did you do? Stair stepper every day on 15 at the LA Fitness or what?
You're gonna laugh at me because I was trying to find hills, and oddly, Beverly Hills does have some hills in
Yeah.
the mountains. So my wife and I would just hike up the hills, and people would ask us, "How do you train?" And we're like, "We're hiking Beverly Hills because they told us to hike some hills."
All
But
right.
that's what we did, and I do boxing, so I did that 4 times a week and just got ready for it. So
Dang. Do you
yeah.
feel like you were prepared for it?
On the physical side, I think I was pretty good. The thing with the altitude is there's nothing you could do. You could be a marathon
Right.
runner and it's still going to hit you. We saw people getting pulled down on a helicopter who were way more fit than I was. It just, every body is different. So that part, it's really tough to train for. Even if you live in Denver, which is at 5,000 feet elevation, we're at 17,000 there. It's a different level.
Did you start at 17,000 and then, or was that
We started at 5 and then we hiked up to about 18,000 is where base camp was.
how many days did that take?
9. Took 9 days there.
Dude, I am such a city boy. I'm
Same.
honestly, I would have been the same. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for that shower. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not looking to have
Yeah.
another day out here, man. Show me where the warm water is.
Yeah, yeah. And like honestly, there's a lot of people do base camp. It's not like, in my opinion, just incredible accomplishment. However, for me, Living in LA, I hike on Beverly Hills. Like I'm not a hiker outdoors guy at all. For me, it was like, all right, I did a trek. It was base camp. I'm going out on top. I'm retiring. No more treks for me. So might as well go out on top.
Kilimanjaro's next, right? You're gonna go Kilimanjaro?
I'll pass on that one. I could say I've done Everest. So
Well, I mean, it's not about like the accomplishment, right? You set the goal for yourself, and I think that's really all that matters. Who cares what other people
yeah,
think of it? Like you went there, you trained for it, you did it for 9 days.
yeah,
Who cares what people think about it?
yeah. And it's like what the cheesy way people say it's like the journey, not the destination. But for something like this, like absolutely, because I walked all over LA to train for it. I was like way
Hmm.
more fit than I've ever been in since high school. Just because you're worried about what's going to happen there, right? So in that way, it's like, oh, this is. I'm really, really happy I did this challenge. It's that type of thing.
That's amazing. All right, enough about Everest. I could freaking bug you
Yes.
about that for forever, but that's rad. Briefly, tell us about your business and what it does to make money.
Sure. So I run a couple businesses. The main one's called Maid, which is a fully remote cleaning company focused on residential cleaning and Airbnb cleanings. I have a couple locations in California, so Los Angeles, San Francisco, and very simple. It's a residential cleaning company. So the
Okay.
business model is pretty straightforward. We started franchising it a handful of years ago, so we're at about 25 locations nationwide now, mainly focused on corporate refugees, people who want to leave their 9 to 5, start a cleaning business on the side and scale it up. They eventually quit their job and have full location freedom. That's the pitch of what we offer with the franchise.
So I love home services. I love home services,
Mm-hmm.
but Chris and I have looked at cleaning before, cleaning companies. In fact,
Yep.
Chris launched a cleaning company a number of years ago, and we hate that business for a number of reasons. But
Yeah.
one of the reasons is like the switching costs or like the ability to lose a customer is very easy. One bad experience, one hair found in the sink, one bad review, one bad interaction, you potentially lose a customer. They don't necessarily have, from at least from our vantage point, high LTV or high margins. What made you get into this business? I'm just curious. You're obviously smart. You're thoughtful.
Yeah.
What drew you to this space?
I'll be honest. I think so. Your podcast, people are listening to this to figure out what's good business models to get into. I was not that smart. I just went with what I saw first. So I guess my quick background, I worked in private equity in Los Angeles. I was there for 4 years, tech investing, spreadsheets, the whole finance thing. And I wanted to start a side hustle because I wanted to quit my job and travel. Simple as that. So what did I do? As I'm at work and I typed, how do I quit my job and travel the world? And it's like start a microblog, start an affiliate site, do e-commerce. I did a lot of these traditionally remote businesses, and every single one of them flopped. They absolutely flopped. And then finally, I was on Reddit when I was supposed to be working, and I came across a post of a guy who started a cleaning company. And I was like, okay, I'm trying this other stuff. It's failing. Let me just give this a shot. And I was so pissed at myself. So I actually like did the work and launched it quick and immediately got a sale. And I was like, oh my
Hmm.
God. I remember I ran outside of my work and I was dancing in front of the building because I was so happy of getting my first
Yeah.
sale ever. And I didn't realize it's a two-way mirror, like a window so everyone could see me dancing, but I didn't know. And from then I just like, oh, this is making money. This will allow me to get my freedom. And at the time, look, I just wanted to help my parents pay for their mortgage and I want to have some extra money to travel. That was kind of
Yeah.
it. So I didn't think, oh, I want to make millions and millions of dollars. What's the best model? I just thought I want to make 3 grand a month. And this is working and it's easy. And in hindsight, the reason it was easy was the competitors suck. Even now, 10 years later, you try to call the top 5 competitors on Google in your location for cleaning. I guarantee you 3 of them will not even pick up.
Hmm.
It's still that low level of sophistication. And eventually we started to get calls from Airbnb customers, started to grow that. And I realized it's a great niche to get into, which has a lot more protections and barriers to entry. And then in 2015 is when I quit my job when I was making enough money, decided to travel, and I spent a few years traveling while running this business on the side.
Where was your business?
It was based in Los Angeles, but
And the cleaning
because
was in Los Angeles?
the cleaning was in Los Angeles, the cleaners were in Los Angeles, nothing
Okay.
else was in Los Angeles. I set it up to be run remotely just because I knew I wasn't going to be there. And I
Right.
think, Nick, in some ways, that was helpful because we had to get systemized very early, rely on technology, automations, global talent before anyone was doing it, meaning our margins were much better than the traditional cleaning company. There's an old school way of doing it. Just like you get a vehicle, you get a wrap, you get an office space with supplies, cleaners come in the morning, they pick up stuff. That sounds awful to me. That sounds terrible. So I just, out of necessity, I created it in a way that was fully remote 10 years ago and to serve my needs, and they made the margins better as well. And I think that's what allowed us to scale pretty fast.
You started first with some like digital services that you were trying to do remotely. It sounded like you were doing like drop shipping. I mean, drop shipping is not technically
Yeah,
digital,
that
but
kind of stuff.
it's like wholesaling.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then you went to an actual services company where you were providing the services in people's homes. What did that look like? Like, how were you qualifying these cleaners in the LA area? Were you meeting every single one of them? Were you posting to Craigslist? Like, how did you manage quality?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, look, I didn't know what I was doing. Now, luckily, our franchisees know exactly how to do it, even remote. But at the beginning, I was meeting them at a Coffee Bean in Tea Leaf, which is close by, and the weekends, and vetting them, signing the contracts, and sending them out. So that's how I was doing the vetting myself.
Hmm. Did you buy or did you start from scratch?
I started completely from scratch.
And did you put any money into it or was it cash flow positive from day one? How did that look?
So the good part about the cleaning space, it's pretty low overhead. After you get up and running, most of the money goes towards marketing. Now that's because we're running in kind of this unique remote local way where we're not having these vehicles and equipments and all this kind of overhead and risk.
Sure.
Because of that, all the money is just spent on marketing. So it was cash flow break even very quickly. And it's the same way for our franchisees is they could get there really quick as long as they market well enough. That's the beauty of the model is there's not a crazy amount of risk involved in it.
So you were paid back on your investment pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think I'm most curious about your customer acquisition costs. Where are your customers coming from? Are they coming from online? Are they word of mouth? I don't know, yard signs? Like, how do you get customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a variety of ways. And Nick, also good ways of going about it would be talking about like, oh yeah, I'll get into like why we chose the niches we're in cleaning, because I think that's actually very important because there's different types of cleaning companies you can start. In terms of how do we acquire customers, there's a variety of different ways. At the beginning, and look, it changes, the landscape changes. At the beginning, we did a lot of AdWords and Yelp. Now we don't do any AdWords at Yelp because it changed. A lot of the way I think about this is do stuff that does not scale until you build enough recurring revenue where your SEO is hitting really well.
Mm.
It's the game plan, right? You're going to rely on quoting engines. You're going to rely on paid ads. You're going to rely on scrappy marketing to get sales. And when they become recurring customers, that's great. You just keep compounding from there. At some point, if you're doing the right things foundationally with your website and stuff, organic leads will start coming in. And that's when you can let go of the paid ads and focus on reoccurring customers and recurring customers and just those customers from organic methods.
What was your favorite strategy in those early days? Guerrilla marketing. What was your favorite way to get
Man,
customers?
you can't do this anymore, but I would go on Airbnb, message every host in the LA area. I got that account banned, create another account, got that account banned, create another account, got it banned. They found my Facebook, they banned my Facebook. So even now, the only account which works on Airbnb for me, which I don't do that anymore, is like my old like flyboy 172 at yahoo.com. Like it's my
Yeah.
old middle school email address is the only one that works in the Airbnb now.
So good.
Yeah, but honestly, what I like about the model, maybe a lot of home service models, is you don't need to have a crazy amount of customer acquisitions. You don't have to do stuff that scales. A lot of people think, oh, I have to figure out, crack this code with Facebook ads. Like you really don't with this model because it's heavily recurring. Now, like
Mm.
you said, churn's higher than a normal industry, but the truth is things get dirty all the time. Someone doesn't buy a cleaning and says, oh, great, I'm done with cleaning for my life. I'm done with cleaning for the next 5 years. That's just not a thing. So because of that, if you get a recurring client, that's great. And if you want to hit a certain freedom number, and a freedom number is I call the point where your base level expenses are covered and you feel like very secure where you could quit your job, you could travel, you do whatever you want. It doesn't take that many recurring customers to hit it. So a lot of things you can do which don't scale, go into apartment complexes, yard signs, whatever, it works fine because these are recurring customers you're buying, not one-time sales.
You talked about the different niches in this space. I would probably segment it as commercial cleaning and residential, but it's probably a lot more than that. What are the different niches?
Yeah, we focus on residential, and within residential, our biggest specialty is vacation rentals. We're actually the first and only Airbnb cleaning franchise that exists. So the way our software works is we could actually hook into, Nick, let's pretend you're an Airbnb host. I could hook into your reservation calendar with a link. Anytime you have a guest checkout, it's going to schedule clean with me. It's going to automatically assign a primary cleaner and your backup cleaner. When the cleaner goes, They fill out the checklist. You get emailed all the photos, a supply report, damage report, everything done and automated for you as the Airbnb
That's awesome.
host.
That's
So
awesome.
it becomes very sticky.
Yeah, I was going to say, so by focusing on that niche, you've probably created a nice moat for yourself, easier to deal with customer problems, especially if you have one Airbnb host who has several locations. I'm assuming you have those types of hosts where you can go one to many.
Mm-hmm.
For your niche in particular, what is a typical for your business customer acquisition cost, and how does that compare to like the lifetime value of those customers?
Yeah, I think it varies depending if you're looking at residential or Airbnb for both customer acquisition costs as well as lifetime value. I'll go start with lifetime value. So lifetime value for, let's say, a residential customer, we're probably keeping them for about 18 months. Many cleaning companies do it much better. For us, at least for LA locations, right around 18 months. We do have customers who've been with us for 5-6 years.
Sure.
So 18 months at, let's say, $180 per clip, average cleaning of maybe 1.5 per month. You're probably looking at, $3,600 to $4,500 in LTV for one customer.
Okay.
On the residential side. And that's lifetime value, so how much that customer is worth. On the Airbnb side, you're probably looking at least 3 times or 4 times that amount.
Oh, wow. Yeah, much
because the
stickier.
quantity is so much more. Our LTV is, I think, 14,400 right now for an Airbnb customer. And sometimes it's a lot more. Like our top customer in LA, who's not even like a company, just an individual host who has 4 units. He spends, I think, $48,000 with us every single year. He's been with us for 7 years.
Wow.
So it becomes very sticky if you find the right customer. The way I think about it, though, is not every customer is going to be the perfect customer, right? Mm-hmm. Like some people inquire, maybe they'll churn out within the first 3 cleanings because they're not a fit. But once they get past a certain threshold, like the risk zone is what I call it, which is typically the first 3 cleanings, they become extremely sticky. So the whole game is you get a customer, cool. Now, how do you get them in the habit of working with you? How do you make it so sticky that they're not going to want to leave? And like you said, on the residential side, people are a little bit more finicky. Churn rates typically in this industry are about 5% monthly on residential.
Jeez.
Airbnbs, it's pretty high. It's usually 2 to 5% is kind of like the max, but it's like 2 to 5% is where you're looking at.
Wow. I mean, that's like over 50% of your customer base a year.
Yes, it is. However, at some point you have a staple of base customers.
Right.
So a lot of that churn is like you get a new monthly customer and they leave in 2 cleanings. Whether you want to count that as a real monthly customer or not, depends. Sure. But most customers, like we, for example, like in LA, we probably have 70 or 80 grand booked every month from customers who've been with us for a year plus, right?
Wow.
Then the ones on top of that, a lot of the churn might happen there.
So 5% on the residential side, how does that compare to the Airbnb side?
I don't know the exact numbers on that because the Airbnb customers, there's not as many because not everyone's in buy now mode. On the residential side, one great part about the industry is things get dirty all the time. Move in, move outs, post-construction, right. Residential home. Oh crap, I forgot to clean up. My mom's coming to town. Post parties. There's an unlimited amount of things to clean. It's never going to go out of business. On the Airbnb side, many times they're going to contact you only if they're pissed off at their current cleaner. And of course, there's less Airbnbs in any given city. But when they do hit, and they're going to hit at some point, in my opinion, you really just need a small percent of them, then it becomes very big money. So it's pretty sticky at that point.
All right. So the LTV residential is around 3,500, Airbnb's around 14,000, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Okay. So is the difference in cost to acquire a customer that massive, or are they actually pretty similar with the customer acquisition costs?
So the actual cost, honestly, is not the biggest burden, because if there was a completely scalable way of getting Airbnb customers, I'll throw a stupid amount of money at it. The truth is there's not. There's a limit, right? And I think that's the biggest issue is on the Airbnb side, you could do outbound, but most of our leads come from just really good SEO. And so how do you quantify that? It's a little bit tough because you can't exactly run paid ads to Airbnb keywords in a very systematic way. So I think just because there's less addressable market, it's tough to actually calculate acquisition cost. And maybe I'm just not good at it. I don't know. There's probably someone smarter than me to figure this out. But acquisition costs would probably be higher for Airbnbs. However, it's not 3 times higher. It's more of a matter of just time, investment, and things like that.
Is it more predictable on the residential side? Do you kind of know where does it fall for your office in LA? How much does it cost to acquire a customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So every location is very different because we have 25 franchise locations. So where you're going to acquire the customer in terms of whatever, it'll change. Typically, you're paying between 35, let's say an average of $35 to $45 per lead. Most times the close rate's 50% if you're doing pretty well.
Wow.
Yeah. For phone sales, it's a 50% close rate. If you're training like a remote team member, maybe that drops down to 40 or something, but 40 to 50% is where you're at in terms of close rate. Meaning it's going to be probably customer acquisition cost of about $100. Now, that doesn't mean every single one of them is recurring. A lot of
Sure.
times it's $100 customer acquisition cost and it's a one-time sale. You have to sift through the one-time sales until some recurring business starts falling through. Or you have a very impressive sales process on the top end to maybe get them recurring at the beginning. I kind of find a mix. Most times
Hmm.
people call, either they're a recurring customer or they're not a recurring customer. It's really hard to convince someone to go recurring.
Can you talk a little bit about your LA location, the one that
Mm-hmm.
you own in particular? How big is it just in terms of volume, and how long did it take you to get to there? It sounds like you've been doing this 10 years, so I'm assuming it's 10 years.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. I think currently we're at like 1.3 in revenue. SDE is probably about 22, 23% in terms of margin. So it's a pretty lean model because we utilize a lot of global talent, AI,
Hmm.
automation. It's like our margins are probably much better than a regular cleaning business. How long did it take to get there? I think I'll be honest, we've been at this rough size between like 1.3 and $2 million on and off for the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years. But my time in the business has decreased drastically. I probably spend less than 5 hours per week on the business. This general manager place, it's automated. It's been hands off for about 4 years now.
When did you make the switch to franchisor? Because I'm assuming, yeah, you could be putting a lot more time and energy into that business, growing that business, but I'm assuming you've shifted your focus more to being a
Yeah.
franchisor and supporting the franchisees in different markets. So when did that start?
Yeah. March 2020, right in time for the pandemic. So perfect time to launch a vacation rental business.
Oh, perfect.
I know, right? So March 2020 is technically when we launched. We awarded our first franchise end of that year, our second franchise in 2021. And so it's a slow roll up, honestly. And
Hmm.
then the following year added maybe five more, and then started to ramp up a lot more from that. So now we're at 23 individual franchisees, about 25, 26 locations.
Okay. And that makes sense, right? You said for the last 4 or 5 years, your company in LA has been in that 1.3 to $2 million range. And
Hmm.
4 years ago is exactly when you started doing the franchise. So I would assume it'd be kind of comparable. Where are the locations? Are they all geographically kind of clustered on the West Coast? Are they all over the country? What does it look like?
They're all over the country. So we only franchise in the US. I wouldn't say we hyper targeted a specific area, although there are some clusters, certain places like Florida, which is a heavy vacation rental market.
Sure.
I prioritize it based off of who is the franchisee and do I think they have the best chance at success, is the truth. That's the number one characteristic of whether we're going to award that location or not. Next would be expectations. After that's going to be, are you a cultural fit? Do we actually like working with you? And so for me, it's less dependent on location, more dependent on who the franchisee is. And I say that because I think there's some models, especially in the franchise world, location matters a lot. Location absolutely matters. That's the number one aspect of it. With the cleaning industry, it's been around forever, literally thousands of years. And any market that there's competition, existing competition is making money, that means the market's already proven out. And we already know from what we said, there's enough business for everyone. If I talk to local competitors, no one's worried about, are you stealing my customer or not? You're worried about if
Yeah.
they're stealing your cleaner or not, but like never your customer because there's
Right.
enough
Right.
business for everyone in almost every single market. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the markets when it comes to like what's the best location to launch. It really depends on who's the franchisee and do they have the chops.
Broadly speaking, just like in the industry, is
Mm-hmm.
1.3 to 2 million, is that like a typical size of where these companies max out or hit a ceiling? Or is that low, high? Like,
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say if I was going to bet, not many cleaning companies hit a million. And
okay.
that's because most of them are run from pretty unsophisticated people, is the truth.
Okay.
Like if you look at the competitors in LA that we have, which we're in a really big market, these are not heavily sophisticated players. And that's how it is in most markets. So they'll probably cap out at a certain size. If you're actually running operations, you maybe have a white collar background, maybe what you're doing in business, or you're able to learn it. I think hitting seven figures is completely doable. I personally know someone who's been running her cleaning company for 25 plus years. She's at around like 3.5 million. It's been coaching that way
Wow.
for a decade plus, great margins.
Sure.
It's like the beauty of the model is I don't think it's as based off of what's going on in the world, it doesn't impact it that much. I don't really care what's happening with AI. I don't really care that the Google algorithm leaked and a lot of people are worried about that SEO of their website. I don't care. It's irrelevant because this business has been around for so long. Plus, what we're doing is so hyper local
Yeah.
that it's kind of insulated from a lot of the external issues going on, meaning it could stand and it could last 25, 30 years. Now, who knows what's going to happen 25, 30 years from now, but if I was from the bet, cleaning's still going to be around, right? Because things
Oh
get
yeah.
dirty all the time.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, Nick,
Absolutely.
back to your question, is that normal or not in terms of size? I think a lot of people do cap out probably around like the 500, 600,000 mark. And getting to millions probably a little bit more rare, but I do think it just depends on who the founder is. I'm kind of speaking in
Mm.
general terms for the cleaning
Yeah.
industry, but I think it depends on who the person is.
All right. My last two operational questions. First one
Yeah.
is how do these businesses typically trade if I were to sell a cleaning company?
So on this one varies drastically because on the lower end, if your business is not doing that much revenue or hasn't been around that long, multiples are extremely low,
Okay.
almost not worth it in some points.
Like what?
Meaning if
Like
you're
one times
one
earnings?
times, yeah, one times are just an asset sale, like not
Mm.
even. If you're sub like 200,000, there's not much value there in terms
Okay.
of what you're offering. Now, as you start to scale up and up and up, I'd probably say above 600,000, 650 or so, you're probably pushing the normal three times earnings.
Okay.
And when you get to larger sizes, like I mentioned, if you're at 2.5, 3 million, you're probably pushing 4 or 5 times. I haven't seen anything crazy astronomical besides that. I've heard of a couple outlier situations where a strategic's acquiring it for about 6 times, which is
Hmm.
abnormal. And that company was around 6 million in revenue, but it's pretty rare. So I'd probably say three.
So last question. If I were starting
Mhm.
one of these businesses up, let's put the franchise model to the side for a second. Just generally speaking, what do typical startup costs look like and how long does it typically take to get to break even?
Yeah. So if you are not starting with the franchise at all, so there's no startup fees in terms of that, the main thing is you need website and marketing,
Okay.
LLC and all that kind of good stuff, sure.
Sure.
But website and marketing. So you spend a couple grand for a good, pretty decent website and you spend money on marketing. You probably could get this started in 5 to 7 grand if you just want to get going, if you want to run lean to begin with. So it's a pretty lean model to start from scratch if you want. That is, I think, what a lot of people worry about. Like, where's the barrier to entry? I think many times it's a knowledge barrier to entry more than anything. But in terms of just pure cost, you could start it pretty cheaply if you want to.
What about the franchising side? Are you able to talk about that or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So our initial franchise fee currently is 39,000 for the initial fee. And all in cost we say is around 50 to 60-ish. And that includes the initial franchise fee because most of the money afterwards is going to be going towards marketing and growth and scale and things like that. That money gets you a big jump, right? You
Yeah.
get all the ops, you get the entire ops manual, website set up for you, SEO going for you, remote team member placement, training program for 8 weeks. It's like everything I wish I knew 10 years ago, but now I
Right.
do know is already inputted there for them. So they often start with value creation already because the SOPs and everything are created versus a brand new entity doesn't have a lot of those operations set yet.
What are you doing centrally for franchisees? Are you doing any marketing? Are you doing any HR? What kind of support do you guys offer?
Yeah, honestly, the support program is like where I spend most of my time, and that's where we're spending most of our money and like what I'm actually personally the most proud of. So when someone starts, they get dropped into what we call Made This University. So 8 weeks part-time around the schedule to get them up and running and trained. After that, they get dropped into what we call the 10K program. How fast can we get you to 10,000 per month in revenue? It's a coaching program, weekly call with other franchisees, plus a dedicated business coach, plus one-on-one calls.
Hmm.
We have a grand launch program. So when they launch, there's a really sweet software we have set up where they figure out what all their marketing levers are, customer acquisition cost, LTV, all that kind of good stuff. Gives them a marketing plan to execute every single week. There's access to the Slack community with all the franchisees. We have conferences a couple times a year. They have the ops manual online. We have it on Notion. In terms of what we actually tactically do outside of just support, we handle all SEO, all email marketing, all social media posting, all website maintenance, A/B testing on the website for pop-ups and funnels. Everything with the funnels completely handled. Automated text, automated emails, seasonal campaigns. Like they don't have to learn any of that kind of stuff. Obviously, a lot of AI stuff we're integrating right now too. So a lot of that's done for them.
All right. You don't have to answer this question, but what's your long-term plan? Is this a business you hold forever in cash flow or are you like, I got that private equity itch. I'm ready to scale and sell in the
Yeah.
next 5 years? I know it's a hard question to ask, but just curious on your thoughts.
The truth is, maybe goes back to the way I think about business. I plan to hold in cash flow. That's my goal. Is I enjoy what I do. I love taking care of the franchisees. It's really fun for me. For me, my ethos is business is meant to support the type of lifestyle you want. I'm not here to cash out and go rich and be like, cool, I'm going to go ball out on a yacht. I'd rather just
Hmm.
go hang out on the yacht right now. I'll run my business. That sounds really fun to me. And
Yeah.
if it sacrifices a little bit of growth, that's okay. I'm okay with that. So going back to that, like I'm trying to build assets. My LA business is an asset. I've had it since 2013. Been around, knock on wood, so far stood the test of time, and I feel like there's a lot of runway left with it, a lot of potential. Same with the franchise business, and who knows? Eventually, I'll start at more and more things. I just got invested in a SMB automations and funnels company. I think a lot of ancillary stuff will eventually start launching and doing. But yeah, I don't. This isn't a let me scale it fast and sell, which like maybe that's actually the move in this industry. I don't really know. That's just not really what I want to do.
No, it's red. All right. I have some rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
Hit me, dude.
I don't think you're ready for this jelly. What do you love about this business?
I love the recurring aspect of it.
Oh,
This is a business where you could create it and eventually automate it, and it creates, I hate saying passive income because it's not a real thing, but you could manage it with less time and have it be stable and growing and making recurring revenue for you. That's beautiful. And there's not a crazy amount of overhead, not a crazy amount of risk. I don't wake up sweating like, how am I going to make payroll? This is not a thing in this industry. You have different sets of problems, but it's kind of a stable company is what I would think
okay.
about it.
All right. What do you hate?
People management, you know?
Okay. Let's clarify. The franchisees or the frontline employees who are actually doing the cleaning
Yeah.
services?
Not the franchisees at all.
Yeah.
And the hard part is, I don't think it's unique just to our model, but when you're in home services, oftentimes you're dealing with blue collar labor, right? And if
Yeah.
it's not your background, you don't quite understand the problems that many blue collar laborers deal with on a day to day basis. And there's maybe more call outs, there's more tardiness, more flakiness. There's a different set of problems that come with dealing with blue collar labor that you just have to deal with in home services. And it's tough. It gets easier over time, but it's never fully solvable because you're still dealing with people. And I think that's the hardest part.
Okay. What keeps you up at night? What are you most stressed out about, specific with your company and your industry?
Yeah. I guess I'll answer both ways because like the easy answer on the franchise side is how do I make the franchisees the most successful? Like I'm up
Mm,
all night thinking about how do I make that actually happen.
yeah.
For my industry, I would probably say laws. There's
Yeah.
changes, there could be changes in labor laws and workers' comp. There's a lot of changes that could happen which would directly impact this type of model. Not everywhere. I feel like there's ways around it, but that's always the most worrisome part of the model, in my opinion.
All right. These are my three favorite questions. Real estate guys are always jealous of SMB guys because they're like, oh, it'd be so nice to have a cash flowing asset that I could grow and
Yep.
scale. And then SMB guys are always jealous of the real estate guys because they're like, man, it'd be so nice just to have a business that has cash flows, but then appreciates slowly and is steady Eddie. I don't have to worry about it.
Hmm.
What business or industry are you the most jealous of right now?
Oh, what a good question. Let me think about this.
Because we all have it, right? Everybody has this sort of grass is greener. And then we get to it and we're like, oh, yeah, it's actually not that much better, but we still think about it.
Yeah, I think it's the information business, meaning like course creators, sellers, things like that who do that. And look, I'm not like, I don't hate on course creators at all because I feel like I bought enough courses. I see the value of them. I even
Oh, yeah.
have a course that I don't really promote, but like I see some numbers that some of these guys are making in terms of just like profit margins and scalability.
Right.
I'm like, that sounds so much easier. Like you're not delivering anything besides a PDF and like content and like
Right.
that's not, like there's zero equity, of course, but it just sounds so much easier. So I'm jealous of
Okay.
course creators, is what I'd
That's a
say.
great answer. What are you obsessed with right now? And to give you some context, if you had 2 free hours today, what would you sit down and do? Are you whipping your laptop out and reading? What are you obsessed with?
So I'm currently doing this in the Buy Back Your Time workbook.
Oh, okay. I've never
You
heard
ever
of
heard
it.
of this book?
No.
Buying Back Your Time through the use of executive assistants, things like that. It's a pretty famous book by Dan Martell. And what I've realized is like I read a lot of books, but implementing it is something I
Yeah.
want to get much better at. So currently I'm obsessed with How do I automate stuff? I hired a full-time EA. How do I get really, really good at delegation? That's what I'm obsessed with right now. So I'm just studying as much as I can about how to be a better manager, how to automate things with the AI, more about funnels, like how to actually set
Mm,
things up so it's out of my brain, like
that's a good,
GTD, all
dude.
that
That's
kind
a
of good
good
stuff.
one.
So
I
yeah,
just hired an executive assistant 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and I'm going through the same thing. I'm like, okay, how do I utilize them? I've never had one before, so what do I do with them? I need to read that book. I just wrote that
yeah.
down. I'm checking it out. All right. Last question. What advice would you give to yourself 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I'd say go bigger sooner, take bigger swings. I think I played it a little bit too safe, stayed in my job a little bit longer than I was hoping. I had too much money in my bank, and I was like, I'm going to save more because I'm scared. And I didn't really bet on myself, bet on the business. I wish I took a swing earlier. Yeah, I mean, like money's very renewable, especially when you see opportunities everywhere. Time is not. So just going bigger earlier, I think, is what I would do.
Love that answer. All right, man. This has been an awesome conversation. I loved getting to know you better. I think we're going to start our own mastermind where we talk about how to get our EAs up to speed and whether or not
I
we're
love it.
utilizing them to their full potential. If people want to come find you, where's the best place?
Yeah, so I actually have my own podcast. It's called The Freedom Formula. So feel free to type in The Freedom Formula with Neel Parekh.
Yep.
You'll be able to find me there. I'm most active on Twitter. And if you happen to be interested, if you go to Made This Franchise, that's MAIDTHIS franchise.com, you can inquire about franchise opportunities as well.
It's rad, man. Hey, let's do this again sometime.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. That's it. Another one for the books. I'm fired up. I don't know what else to say. I hope you found something valuable in that conversation. I hope you learned something. I hope there's something that you can apply to your business today, tomorrow, in the future that makes you money, makes you more successful, gives you more time with your kids. If there was something, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Give me some feedback. And if you like actionable advice and you want more of this, I write a weekly newsletter that gives insights, tips, and tricks into the world of entrepreneurship. Subscribe in my bio. And if I can help you in any way in your entrepreneurial journey, don't hesitate to reach out to me, nick@cofounders.com. Sorry, Kelly, for more emails. And the last thing is, remember, curiosity is a superpower and you can use it to your advantage. As my mom used to say, there's no such thing as a dumb question, only dumb people. We'll see you next time.